Hello, and welcome to my new YouTube channel. Uh, this is going to be something that I am trying in addition to writing the articles and posts on the website. I just want to try and reach a wider audience and hopefully make some of my content a little bit easier to digest, considering some of my articles tend to be 2 to 3,000 words long and can be rather time consuming to consume. Um, and I'm hoping that maybe I can reach an audience who would prefer videos. However, I will not stop writing the articles for the time being. I'm going to try and do both and see what I can do. This is my first time attempting anything on YouTube, so I would really appreciate some feedback. And please let me know if this is something that you think I should continue trying, or if you have any tips or tricks or ideas for me to do it in a better way or expand to other video types. So, today I'm starting with a squad review of Today the Rebellion Dies, featuring Iden Versio, Gideon Hask, Meeko, and Imperial Special Forces. This is a box that I'm really excited for. I generally don't play Empire. In many games, I'm not usually the biggest fan of Empire stuff. However, I am a huge fan of Battlefront 2, and I loved the campaign where you got to play as Iden. And because of that, this box is really is really speaking to me, and I cannot wait to get them on the table. I will probably be playing them with Gideon to start, Moff Gideon, but that could change. So let's jump into it. It starts out with Commander Iden Versio. She is the primary from this squad. She's got 8 squad points, 3 force, which I think at the moment is probably the best place to be. Generally speaking, 8 squad points is the most flexible and most common spot to be in, as is 3 force for primaries across the board, and likely primaries in Empire once we get more releases for them. Her other stats are 9 stamina, 3 durability, Galactic Empire, and Scout tags. 9 stamina is the only thing that sort of pops out to me as a different or potentially a little bit worrying. It's not the end of the world because they do have access to a reasonable amount of heals, so it should not feel that low, but Empire so far does not have a ton of defensive abilities, so it could feel a little bit on the low side at first, but I'm hoping with more releases that will change. Galactic Empire and Scout tags, obviously Galactic Empire is very good. Scout in this instance is very good because of some of the abilities that we will see on her and the units in this squad pack. I'm expecting that them and maybe regular scout troopers will be the only ones who get the scout keyword, but I'm always happy to be surprised in the future. So let's jump into her abilities. Her first ability is going to be a tactic. It is Today the Rebellion Dies. At the start of this unit's activation, each other allied Galactic Empire Scout character within 4 that is not engaged may dash, then one character in this unit may dash. So off the bat, this is amazing. This is a very, very good ability. If depending on how you build your strike team, this ability could move up to 5 different characters at one time. That's Iden, Gideon Hask, Meeko, and Imperial Special Forces, assuming they're all within 4 and not engaged. So if Iden is an early draw for you, you get to move all of those units before they go. That would be nice early in the game, but it's also nice to reposition right when you flip to Struggle 2 or Struggle 3, as a way to sort of keep your list moving and mobile. So I think this ability is very, very good and will pretty much always be used. There's no downside, and I don't think it's going to be super difficult to keep them within 4 and generally unengaged, at least half of them unengaged. Her second ability is an active ability, Covert Operations. It costs 1 force. Each character in this unit may dash. If one or more characters end this movement within 4 of an enemy character, This unit immediately makes a focus action, and characters in this unit have Sharpshooter 1 until the end of the turn. So this is really good. It sort of falls under that active ability that's similar to stuff like Defensive Maneuver, where you spend a force, you get a move, and then there's a second effect. However, this one sort of has two effects, but there's an additional stipulation of you need to end within 4 of an enemy character if you want them. So I think that's a fair trade-off. Getting Sharpshooter 1 and a focus action and a dash for 1 force is fairly good. I don't think you need to use it every time she goes, specifically, but I do think it's something that if you have the excess force, it's worth attempting to use pretty often. Her third ability is also an active ability. ID-10 Seeker Droid also costs 1 force. Choose an enemy unit within range 3. The chosen unit removes all of its hunker. If no hunker were removed, the chosen unit gains expose. So this is also really good. The first part of the ability is a sort of a counter to Obi-Wan, where you get to remove its hunkers. And that's not bad at all. Removing cover if you're going to attack something is very nice. It will make her potentially a lot more consistent when attacking ranged attacks, which is very good. However, for me, the second part of this ability is what I am really looking forward to, and I think probably the use case that you want to focus on the most, and that's if no hunker tokens were removed, the chosen unit gains expose. So it really, there's no real downside to using this ability on a unit that does not have hunker tokens, because you're going to get that expose. And if I'm being completely honest, I think this ability is probably best used against units that are going to not have any hunker tokens on them, so you get that expose. The expose is just going to make her potentially punch a lot harder than she would have against something without an expose, or something even with just without just hunker tokens or cover. So I think this ability is really good. Once again, you probably don't need to use it every time that she activates, but it is likely going to be used pretty often. And then her fourth ability is the Empire Sends Its Regards. It's her identity ability. When an allied Galactic Empire character wounds an enemy unit with an attack, after the effect is resolved, that allied character may choose another enemy unit within range 4. The chosen unit gains disarm or strain, then the allied character may heal and dash. So this is great. This is really good. You are playing Empire, so you're likely going to be wounding stuff anyway. So this ability is really just like pure profit. There's no real downside to it. You wound an enemy with an attack with one of your allied units. After the effects are resolved, the allied character may choose another enemy unit within 4, so it does take a little bit of setup. And that unit, so the other unit, would gain either a disarm or a strain. Then the allied character may heal and dash. So this really is going to add to the mobility of any units that are in a strike team with Iden, and particularly going to add to the maneuverability and overall mobility of this whole squad pack, because a lot of them are very mobile and going to be running all around the map. The heal is once again very nice, because generally speaking this squad pack has lower staminas and slightly worse defensive capabilities, so I think that's a nice way to boost them a little bit, especially when they're going to be wounding stuff anyway. So overall, I'm really happy with her abilities. I'm quite excited to get her on the table and see how she plays. I think she's not that force hungry. You don't need to use covert operations or ID-10 every activation, but they are probably things that you're going to use sometimes. So let's move over to her stance cards. The first one is Burst Fire. And this one to me seems like potentially her more offensive stance, but it's a little bit better at defense as well, so I think it could go either way. But she is getting 7 attack dice at range 5, which is a great start. 6 in melee, and then 5 defense dice for both on this side, which is a really good base, especially when you start to consider covert operations, where she's going to be getting that free focus and sharpshooter, so she can potentially roll up to 9 dice, which is quite good. Her ranged attack expertise is also very good. A crit at every level is excellent. She gets 1 crit at 1, 2 crits at 2 to 3, and then 2 crits and a block to a fail at 4 or higher. Now, I'm not 100% on the math here, but from what I've heard from people talking and from talking to people, is that a block to a fail, like she has very commonly on these cards, is slightly worse than just generating a strike. Because if your opponent is to whiff their defensive roll, then that essentially doesn't do anything. I believe it also would happen. Now, I could be wrong on this, but I believe it happens before your opponent changes any of their expertise results. So if they have an expertise that will change into a block, this will do nothing to that block. However, I could be mistaken on that, and if I am, I will put it in the description. Her melee expertise is also pretty good. It's definitely not bad. She's getting, once again, a crit at every level and a block to a fail, at least 1 block to a fail at every level. Once you get to 3 or higher, she gets 2 crits and 2 blocks to fails, which is actually pretty potent when you consider that a block to fail is similar to a strike. She is getting essentially 2 crits and 2 strikes, which is really not bad at all, especially for a unit that probably wants to be shooting anyway. So it means that she's going to be no slouch in melee should you need to go in there punching and kicking, which I really like. It makes her feel a little bit more flexible. Her defensive expertise is really good. It's fantastic, in my opinion. Getting 2 blocks at 1, 2 blocks and a heal at 2, 2 blocks, a heal, and a reposition at 3 or more is incredible. She gets more results than she rolls expertise at all levels until she rolls 5 or more expertise results. She's getting a 1-to-1 ratio or better, which is great. Heals, once again, very important considering the lower stamina that she has. And then at that 3rd level, she's getting a reposition, once again, adding to her already very good mobility. So she is going to be running around the map if you need her to be, or she can stay in one place. It all depends. I just really like that she has the flexibility to move around should you want her to. Looking at the combat tree, I believe this one is pretty good. It tops out at 9 damage, which is not bad, but it's really 10 because if you look at her first column, there's a pin, and then if you look at the 4th column, there's also a pin. I'm not 100% sure why they did that, but it allows you to have a pin either way. So if you start on the bottom, you get the expose, then you can go and still get the pin. But if you want more damage, you can go for the top and go get the pin and do 10 damage instead of 9. So there's a little bit of a trade-off. This tree, in my opinion, is okay. She does not have a shove until 3, which is not bad, but I do wish it was on 2 or earlier. And then her reposition and heals do not happen until 6. Now, she does shoot pretty well, so it's possible that you're going to be getting 3, 4, 5 successes pretty frequently. And I'm pretty happy that the damage is happening earlier rather than later. But overall, I feel like this tree is a little bit lacking personally, but I don't think it's bad at all. Just a little bit on the weaker side, in my opinion. And then her second stance is going to be called Full Auto. This, to me, feels like her more effect oriented stance. So she's doing more conditions effects on this one rather than damage. But it does shoot a little bit better and defends a little bit worse. So I can't quite tell which one is which for her specifically. She gets a range 5 shot again with 8 attack dice this time, so potentially 10. A 6 in melee, and then 5 defense at range and 4 defense in melee. Her ranged attack expertise is very similar. It's got very similar icons, but the levels are different. So in this one, at 1 to 2, it's a crit and a block to a fail. 3 to 4 is 2 crits and a block to a fail. And then 5 or more is 2 crits and 2 block to fails, which is still very, very good. And I don't think it needs to be underestimated or anything, but the fact that she loses that sort of 1-to-1 ratio of expertise to results is a little bit sad. However, I still think this expertise is very good. Her melee expertise is the exact same as before. So, once again, good. She is capable in melee, should you need her to be, but it's obviously not the best we've ever seen. Now, defensively, she's a little bit worse, and I missed this on my first read-through, but it's the exact same symbols, they're just at different levels. So, 1 to 2 now is 2 blocks, 3 is 2 blocks and a heal, and 4 or more is 2 blocks, a heal, and a reposition. So basically you just need one more expertise result to get these results from this table, rather than burst fire, you don't need that one extra. So still very good, but a little bit worse than her previous defensive expertise. And then the tree here is a little bit different. She only tops out at 7 damage on this one, so 3 lower than previously, but she has access to up to 3 shoves, a dash, 3 heals, a reposition, expose, and pin still. So a lot of more options on what you can do with this one. More shoves is obviously very good. Repositions, heals are obviously, once again, very good. So I do like both of her stances, feel really good. To me, there isn't a very obvious choice of which one you want. However, I am not a huge fan of how her shoves only start on her 3rd column for both stances. That feels a little bit on the weaker side to me. But she is going to be dishing out a reasonable amount of damage, so maybe that displacement will not be required too much for her if she's going to be wounding things left and right. Overall, I think she's a great unit. I'm really excited to get her on the board, and I think that she is going to be a super good primary for Empire, whether you're playing all special forces or just toss her in with stormtroopers. I think you can't really go wrong with her. So, moving on, we are going to look at the secondary unit, Gideon Hask, Inferno Squad. Gideon is a 4-cost secondary, 0 force, as always. He has 8 stamina, 2 durability, Galactic Empire, and Scout tags. Once again, his stamina is a little bit on the low side. 8 is a little lower than I think what the average is in the game, but once again, he has access to heals, both from himself and from the rest of his squad, should you take him with Iden and Special Forces or Del. So it should be okay. It's just a little bit harder, and he is well within 1-shot range for a lot of primaries and secondaries in the game right now. So I would be careful with how you're placing him, but overall I think it will be okay in the long run. His first ability is an active ability called Long Live the Empire, costs 1 force. Now, we've seen this on Moff Gideon, so it's kind of funny. Both of the Gideons in the game have this ability, and with Moff Gideon, it is pretty good. I don't think it's the best ability either one of them has, but it's definitely not terrible. It goes, choose an active objective and an allied Galactic Empire supporting unit. One character in the chosen unit may reposition towards that objective, then the chosen unit suffers 2 damage. If this effect wounds the chosen unit, that unit may remove 1 wound token, all damage, 1 condition from itself. If it does, that unit gains an injured token. So, this ability it's okay. I'm not going to say it's great. I don't think you ever really want to wound yourself doing this unless under very specific circumstances. But that reposition can be very, very helpful, and it can help Gideon's activation affect more than just one active objective, which is, as we've seen before, very good when you can flip multiple objectives. However, with the low stamina of this squad pack, I'm not sure you really want to be putting that damage on your supporting units if you can avoid it. So, to me, the only time that you would use this is if you have a supporting unit that's got 1 or 2 health remaining before they're wounded. Personally, I would just use this ability so that they can do something. They can go contest an objective, because it's going to be a whole lot easier for your opponent to do the 1 or 2 damage to wound them versus doing 8 or 9 to them during the next activation. And then that way you can almost help yourself sort of guarantee that they're not going to be put to sleep during a time where it's going to be important for you to be contesting. So I think it's good, but situational, highly situational. His second ability is Covert Operations. Iden had the same thing. Everybody has this. Once again, with Gideon specifically, I don't think he needs to use it every time. I don't think it's bad with him by any means. It helps him throw up to 9 dice. But I don't think it's going to be necessary to use every single time he goes by any means. So I think you have a lot of flexibility here. If you just want to focus and shoot with him, I think you're fine. His third ability is May We Live Up to Our Name. When this unit is wounded by an attack, after the effect is resolved, one character in this unit may immediately dash and make a 5 dice attack targeting the character that wounded it. So this is sort of similar to Vader's ability, where he can do the same thing. If he's wounded, he gets to do the 5 dice attack. It's really good. Since he's wounded already, and he's likely not going to be, he's not going to be contesting any objectives, you can sort of dash wherever you want, make that 5 die attack. If you don't roll anything good, then whatever. But sometimes you'll roll 5 crits and wound them back, and it feels amazing. And the fact that it's an identity ability and not a reactive means there's no downside to using it. It will never cost anything. So it's just good. It's just pure profit, which I love. And then his fourth ability is Defiance Will Be the Death of You. When an allied Galactic Empire character makes an attack as part of a combat action, if the target is within 5 of 1 or more other allied Galactic Empire Scout characters, it adds 1 strike to the attack roll. So this ability is very, very, very good. It's, I don't think, going to be very difficult to keep your scouts within 5 of enemies. They sort of want to be at that like medium skirmish range of stuff, so they're going to be in that little circle. This affects potentially all Galactic Empire characters. It's not just ranged attacks, it counts for melee attacks as well, as long as you have an other allied Empire scout, then you get to add that strike. And adding the strike sort of makes it feel like any of them are rolling +1 die, and that die is guaranteed to be a strike. So really potent, potentially really powerful. I think that is his defining ability and what's going to keep him in lists and on the table very consistently in the near and far future. His stance is called Imperial Aggression. So he starts off, once again, range 5, 7 attack dice, but more than likely 9 if you're using Covert Ops, 6 attack dice in melee, 5 defense for both range and melee. So that's a really good base. It can shoot well, punch well, and defend well in both range and melee, which I really like. They all feel very flexible so far. His ranged attack expertise is pretty good. He's getting at least 1 crit at every level, which is excellent. He's getting also at least 1 additional damage at every level, which once again is very good. And then at 3, he gets a block to a fail, and at 4 or more, he's getting a 2nd crit and a block to a fail. So really good. He's going to be very consistent, and he's going to be able to pump out a pretty good amount of damage pretty much every time he's shooting. His melee attack expertise is, I believe, identical to Iden's. Nope, almost the same. His 1 to 2 is the same, a 1 crit, 1 block to a fail, and then his 3 plus is 2 crits, but only 1 block to a fail, as opposed to Iden's 2 blocks to fails. So once again, not bad. He can handle himself in melee if you need him to, but he'd rather be shooting. His defensive expertise, once again, very good. Very similar to Iden's. At 1, he's getting block and heal. At 2 to 3, he's getting 2 blocks and a heal. At 4 or more, he's getting 2 blocks, a heal, and a reposition. So just like with Iden, very good. Blocks and heals at every level. Love it. Reposition at 4. Love it. He's going to be just as mobile as her, running all over the board. Wherever you need him, he can be there. His combat tree is also very good. He tops out at a potential of 7 damage, which is not a bad place to be. It's going to be 8 if you add in expertise, which almost always will be added in. He can do up to 2 shoves, and he has a shove on 1 and 2 on his bottom row, which is very, very good. Shoves on 1 are excellent. Shoves on 2 are excellent. And when you have both, it's very good. A dash on 3 and 5 is also very good, and then he also has a heal on 5. So overall, this tree is excellent. It's very similar to Rex's, and we know that Rex's is also excellent. So I think his whole stance altogether is just going to be very good. It's going to feel really good to use. It's flexible, and he has enough displacement that it could cause some serious issues. Overall, Gideon Hask, I think, excellent choice. I'm really excited to get him on the table. I think so far I am very pleased with how this box is looking, and I think both Iden and Gideon are going to find themselves in a lot of Empire lists for the near and far future. So let's move on to the next unit. Meeko Inferno Squad. Once again, 4 points cost, but he is a supporting unit, 0 force, 8 stamina, 2 durability, Galactic Empire Scout. So pretty much all the same basic stats as Gideon Hask, but he is the supporting unit as opposed to the secondary. Once again, 8 stamina, not bad for a support. Still a little bit low, but remembering he's a support, it's not that bad. He's got the 2 durability, so he could leave the map depending on how often he's getting hit, but overall I think it's fine for a support. His first ability is going to be Trick Shot. At the start of this unit's activation, if no characters in this unit are engaged, choose an enemy unit in line of sight. The chosen unit suffers 1 damage and removes all of its hunker. We've seen this ability very recently on Crosshair from the Bad Batch box, and it is a phenomenal ability on Crosshair. 1, damage that doesn't care about blocks or defensive abilities or anything is nice, but it's not super great. However, the second part is excellent. Removing all of its hunkers is very good. Super nice counter to Obi-Wan lists, or just anything that you are going to want to shoot with a different unit in your squad, because Del doesn't particularly care about hunker tokens on opposing characters anyway, because he ignores cover. So overall, really good ability. No reason not to use it. If you can get that 1 damage, sometimes it'll wound something. Sometimes it's just adding 1 to the total. It's really quite good. Second ability, as we've seen with everything so far, Covert Operations. However, with him, I would say personally, you want to be using it almost every time he's going. Unlike Iden and Gideon, who don't necessarily need it every time they go, I think you really want the focus with Del, and the Sharpshooter 1 is very good when you add it to his third ability, Deadeye. Characters in this unit have Sharpshooter 2. When a character in this unit makes a ranged attack, the target does not benefit from cover. So this is that standard sniper ability we've seen on Cody, Gar, Crosshair, Guarm, I believe has something similar, where target doesn't benefit from cover and they have some level of Sharpshooter. So if you're using covert operations with Dell, that is additive to Deadeye. So he will have Sharpshooter 3 and a free focus if you're using covert operations. And the target is not benefiting from cover. So he's rolling a buttload of dice, which can be very good. His fourth ability is Special Forces Sniper. This unit may make a combat action up to 2 times during its activation instead of the normal 1. So this is the first unit we've seen with this ability. With something even close to being similar. He can take 2 combat actions. So that's not just 2 attacks, it's not shooting twice, it's 2 actions. Which means anything that it restricts its abilities, like you can only proc it if you take an action, means he can do it twice. So I believe, if we go back, Defiance will be the death of you, Gideon's last ability. It means that assuming you meet all of the other stipulations, you can add a strike to both of Del Meeko's attacks, which is very good and should help him feel pretty consistent. Now, there is a very sort of special ruling and funky thing that happens with focuses and this ability, but I will cover that once we go over to his stance card, which we'll do now. His stance is Suppressive Fire. Shooting at range 5, obviously he's a sniper. He starts off with 6 attack dice at range, but it's always going to be more. 6 in melee, 5 defense at range, and 4 defense in melee. So let's just talk about these dice for a second. 6. If he's using covert operations, that's Sharpshooter 3, so he's adding 4 dice, so that's 10, which is quite good. That's how many Crosshair is throwing, and we've seen that that means basically you are always going to be running your whole tree, unless you're shooting something like Dooku or Ahsoka, who defend very, very well. But this is where things get a little bit weird. If you're using covert ops, you get that focus, you add the 4 dice, you shoot once. So you shoot your first time, you'll throw 10 dice. If you want to do another combat action, you'll only throw 6. Because the focus only affects an attack, the first attack that happens after you focus. So you could, if you wanted to, shoot with 6, then use covert operations, then shoot with 10. Or you can use covert operations, shoot with 10, then shoot with 6. But one attack will always be 6. It's not always the first one, not always the second one, but one attack will always be 6. Which is very important to remember. He is not capable of throwing 20 dice in one activation like a lot of people seem to think he is. So still very good. 16 dice is pretty good, but if you really think about it, it does just essentially put him in line with other supporting units. So once again, 2 attacks sort of also puts him in line with other supporting units, because let's take something, for example, like 212. When they make an attack action or a combat action, they are both shooting. So it's effectively 2 shots. But it only takes 1 action and they have 2 bodies. Versus Del Meeko, if he wants 2 shots, he has to take 2 actions. And he only has 1 body, and he's not winning ties. So before we get into his stance card, he's right now just not, to me, super great. He's not winning ties. He's not doing anything different from what other supports are doing. If he was a secondary, I think he would be a lot better, in my opinion, just because of the way his abilities line up and the way his stats line up. But since he's a supporting unit, I'm not sure he really cuts the mustard. But let's look at his stance card before we make any final judgments. So we talked about the dice. His ranged attack expertise is actually quite good. Now, it does look weird that he's not generating any hits or crits at 1 to 2 expertise, but he at least gets 1 crit at 3 to 4 and then 2 crits at 5 or more. However, he gets a shove at all 3 levels, which is very good. It is immune to steadfast because it does not come from the combat tree. So you will always be able to shove whatever you're shooting if you roll an expertise, which is excellent. Now, it's his only shove. So one shove is not do a ton. If there's a unit sitting on the middle of an objective, one shove is not enough to push them off of the objective. However, he can shoot them twice, so he can do up to 2 shoves in an activation, but once again, a lot of things can do 2 shoves, so it's a trade-off. It's interesting. There's a lot to think about with the way that he functions. His melee expertise is the same as Gideon's, maybe slightly worse. Yeah, slightly worse. 1 to 3 is a crit and a block to a fail, and then 4 or higher is 2 crits and a block to fail. So he does not want to be punching. He really just wants to be shooting. You're only getting 6 dice in the punch, but you can get up to 10 from a shot. So keep him away from engagement if you can. Probably keep him backline just so he's not going to be doing any sort of punching or defending in melee. His defensive expertise, once again, looks very similar to what we've seen. Blocks and heals at every level, reposition at 4+. I believe this is actually it's still not identical. 1 to 2 is a block and a heal. 3 is 2 blocks and a heal. 4 or higher is 2 blocks, a heal, and a reposition. Once again, repositions on defense, very good, but overall, it's okay. I don't think it's super great, but a heal at every level is important, and at least 1 block at every level is important. So, moving on to the tree. He can do up to 6 damage off of 1 shot, which is still quite good. It's about middle of the pack for supports, maybe a little bit on the high end, which is good, in my opinion. He can do a disarm, a pin, an expose, strain, reposition, and heals on various different spots, which, once again, is very good. So potential to do 5 damage and 3 conditions off of 1 attack is excellent. When you account for the fact that he can do 2 attack actions, that 5 and 3 conditions really just becomes 13 damage and 3 conditions. So, and that's only off of 4 successes each attack. So 8 successes total for 13 damage and 3 conditions is not bad. It's not bad at all. And that's something that I would be happy to put into just about any primary in the game. The only thing that stops me a little bit from that is that it's not pin expose strain, it's disarm expose strain. If it was pin expose strain, I would be doing that route every single time. But to me, pins are the most powerful condition. They're the ones that I hate to see on my units the most. So I think there's still a very good argument for going to the bottom, because you're also going to get that reposition and the heal. So flexibility options, quite good. I still think overall Meeko is the weak link in this box. He is a tough sell when you compare him to other supporting units, in my opinion, especially when we look at the next unit that is in this box. Imperial Special Forces. So, once again, they are a supporting unit, 4 points cost, 0 force, 8 stamina, 2 durability, Empire, and Scout tags. All the stats identical to Gideon and Dell. Once again, 8 is not bad for a support. They have access to a lot of heals, so should be pretty good. Scout lets them help other units take advantage of Gideon's defiance, so they will be adding potentially a lot of offensive capability to your other units by letting them add a strike. Their first ability is a tactic called Special Forces Conditioning. At the start of this unit's activation, it may remove 1 damage and 1 condition from itself. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. I mean, removing a damage and condition at the beginning of your activation. Every activation is very good, especially for a support. It means they are not getting pinned, they are not getting strained, and it's going to be a lot harder to get damage to stick on them. So this ability is a fantastic start. I really wish that this ability was on all 4 units in this squad pack. It is very, very good. Their second ability, Covert Ops, we've seen it 4 times now. These guys are a little bit more like Iden and Gideon, in my opinion. They don't need it every time they activate. They probably don't need it all that often, but when you need it and you can use it, it's going to be very helpful and very good. So definitely a consideration, but not a requirement by any means. And their third and last ability is Infiltration. When deploying characters in this unit, characters may be placed within range 3 of the first place character from that squad's primary unit instead of the normal one. So we've seen this ability on pawns, and we've seen it on rebel commandos. They just get to be deployed a little bit further up, which is good, but dangerous. So it's not something you always want to do. It really depends on how the terrain and what objective you're playing. But if you put them up too far and they're going against something that can double advance in an activation and come hit them, it's going to be a bad time because they are going to get wounded very early on, and you're going to regret placing them that far forward. It's nice to have the option to do so, but I think you want to be careful with this. However, it's still very, very good. Their stance is also pretty good. Funnily enough, I wish I had included a picture here. It is the exact same as the Clone Commandos stance. I believe everything is identical except for their defensive expertise at level 3 or more. So we know with experience that Republic Commandos are very good. Their attack is solid. Their defense is solid. Their expertise are pretty good. They want to be shooting, but they can punch if you need them to. And their defense is also pretty good. I prefer, personally, the Special Forces defensive expertise, where they get 2 blocks and a heal. I think, off the top of my head, the Clone Commandos get a block and a reposition. So adding that block and heal and taking away the reposition, to me, feels a lot better than 1 block and 1 reposition. And then the combat tree is identical. Tops out at 8 damage, pin, strain, reposition. Very good, very straightforward. You can pump out a really respectable amount of damage with these guys. And that reposition at level 5 is excellent. They can move around. They got covert ops to use. They can run all around the board and be right where you need them to be. So I definitely think these guys, for me personally, are a standout in this box. I am the most excited to get them on the board, but I'm also a huge Clone Commando fanboy, so I'm sure that has something to do with it. So overall, I am very excited to get this box on the table. I love the miniatures. I think they're going to be a lot of fun. I wish Meeko felt a little bit different, but I don't think he's bad. He's just the weakest link in the box. However, once I get them on the table, that opinion could change. I'm just not certain that it will. Thank you for watching. Please give me some feedback. Let me know what you think. If this is something that you think I should keep doing, that I should do more often, if I should do anything different with my videos or articles, please, I would love to know. Let me know in the comments or reach out to me on any of my socials. I'm going to be posting this on YouTube soon, and then I'm also going to be putting links to them on the website, diceandcardboard.com. I am also on social medias. I'm on Instagram, Facebook under the same name. If you want to look me up, shoot me a message, give me a follow. Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. Peace.